Father said, no one lives. I'm Anthony.
I'm Kirby.
And I'm Jim.
Welcome to issue number 188 of the Crimson Cowl Comic Club podcast. Almost each and every week, we meet here to talk about comic books. This week's show, we have a club discussion for issue number 3 of Brzrkr. Then we will jump into weekly reviews. We'll go all the way around the Zoom windows here and talk about the books that we've been reading, whether they're new, whether they're old. Then we'll jump into this week's letters page, which here's the question. We'll give people time to think their answers until we get to that segment. In honor of Black Widow getting her own long overdue movie, what other character that we've already seen in the MCU would you like to see a movie for? So feel free to think of your answers, and we'll talk about that later in the letters page. But we will start off with issue number 3 of Brzrkr. The shocking history of B is revealed as Diana digs deeper into his memories. Meanwhile, the mysterious Caldwell makes his next move to take advantage of the information and put his master plan into motion. This comic is created by Keanu Reeves, Matt Kent, Ron Garney, Bill Crabtree, and Clem Robbins. So the series here, just a real quick recap. You got this guy named B, who is like 80,000 years old or something like that, and his mom wished to the gods for maybe a son, maybe a weapon or a tool, but wished for this being to come into their lives, and this being who was then trained and became this being born of lightning. Like literally, his mom, had a relationship with lightning that struck down in their little village there, and B was born. And throughout the years, he trains and he's becoming this berserker, and he is helping save their people and their tribes and all of the attackers and the enemies of the nearby groups and everything, and the lands are all being taken out very brutally, very graphically, very bloody, like at the hands of B. And this issue is diving into that even more as we are getting more of his backstory. And I guess the overall summary that I could really say is that this issue is basically like B's dad is basically that parent who is forcing the child to play school sports whether they want to or not, because we find out that the dad is basically the kind of the instigator of just saying, oh well, here's this tribe, let's go take them out because they're a danger to us. And it's like, oh but dad, but they're so far away, are they even a threat? Well, they have money, so yes, they're a threat, let's kill them. Okay, now let's go kill them. And that's kind of the overall theme of this issue, where you have the dad that is kind of pushing his son, his lightning born son, to be this killer. And then you have the mother who is listening to B and kind of questioning her husband on whether or not this is, if they're going too far with it. So that's kind of the overall theme of this particular issue. Myself and Kirby have read this one. Katie, who will be joining us hopefully later in the program, hopefully she'll pop up towards this club discussion, because I think she's been reading this as well. So we'll maybe hear from her. But Kirby, any thoughts on this issue, or what stood out? Or
You keep calling them B. Did they say that in the earlier issues?
in the synopsis,
They do. In this one, they focus on Unit. Unit is
yeah, Unute is the word we hear a couple times in this issue, in which as he's training and kind of growing up, and we find out that within 2 seasons he's basically grown up from a baby and has become this massive weapon. But the Unute is another word.
weapon.
Yeah, tool or weapon. And he's questioning his mom, as he's like, am I just a dog of war? And she says that he's a gift. But going back to the B thing, in the synopsis that I pull off of Previews World, they keep saying B. I don't. I think maybe that
I don't know.
Diana. I think Diana has called him B. I don't think anyone in his family or back then, because way back, 80,000 years ago, they didn't have those cool nicknames and stuff.
Usually back then with some of the things from other series and stuff, it was always boy.
Oh,
So
sure.
B boy. But yeah, I one thing I hate with the whole immortal thing is when they rapidly you're born and all of a sudden you're a full-fledged adult and then you just stop growing. And it's like, why don't you just let them grow through their childhood and let them do their things and find out that they can't be killed and stuff like that and build their powers. I think that would be more interesting than just taking them to a adult age and stopping all of a sudden. That's the age you're going to stay at for the rest of your life.
Yeah, within 2 seasons, he's punching his fist through everybody's head, and yeah, he's pretty much at full
Basically, you
potential.
got a 2-year-old child that's being told by his non-father to go out and wipe out all these other villages and shit. So it's like this non-father is corrupting his mind to do all this and forming him around that, which, I mean, they don't really get deep into his real father or anything, but you see it as a stepfather form in this one more.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and speaking of that, based off of exactly what you were saying there, after he literally is just resting on a mountain of bodies that he just destroyed, he has his face that is just mangled, and he looks like Two-Face Harvey Dent there in this shot. And in that scene, he's sitting there and he keeps asking, Father, is this enough? Did I do well? He's looking for that approval. Is this good? But then he says, I don't remember you being there in the cave with Mother. Who is he? And his stepfather, adopted dad, whatever you want to call him, is like, he? And he goes, who is my father? And that's where we dive into that lightning origin that we got last month. But yeah, we definitely get. I think it's good calling him the stepfather in this, because he does kind of have those traits of, I guess, a cliche stepfather. Obviously, not every stepfather is training their child to kill all the neighbors or something. And it's probably a very small percentage, but in this sense, that's kind of how they're treating it. And that catchphrase I said to open up the show is where he says it twice. B says it twice in here, where he goes, Father said, no one lives. And they actually mention how even the women and children get slaughtered by him, because they say, well, if we spared the women and children, they would only have raised children into men bent on destroying our valley. The children would never forget. And so his
revenge.
Yeah, his stepdad here is basically just doing everything he can to almost become his own king while he has his weapon,
using his weapon and his tool against everybody else.
Yeah, so that is.
And then in this one, we all knew it, but we got to finally see where the therapist and the other doctor guy are all kind of conspiring against him in one way, shape, or form, just to basically make super soldiers and all that shit.
Yeah, because he's talking a lot about the lightning and how it can be recreated, and they're just talking about how he's starting to remember. Because basically, the narration throughout this book and mostly throughout the series is him sitting there with that Diane and him retelling remembering his history as we're seeing it on the page here. But yeah, that Caldwell guy, which is another name that I pulled from the Previews World synopsis, because I don't know if they've actually said Caldwell in the series. Maybe in the first issue. But yeah, they cut to him in present day on a mission, and you just see him, just on a helicopter going back, and there's body bags, and he's just looks like nothing but depressed and tired and bloody and just and he's been
it's like we took 4 KIAs and it's like, well, they got in my way. It's like, does there have to really be any other soldiers? I don't understand why they take all these other soldiers in. You could go more stealth wise and get them into something.
Yeah, there was that one scene in the flashback where he just had like 2 or 3, maybe, a very small handful assisting him, but obviously he doesn't need any of those people. And we'll get that telemarker live on the podcast. You're on the podcast. What you want? Oh, okay. I may have gotten that from Under the Cowl of MS, which you can subscribe to wherever you get your podcast.
And it's funny because every time we listen to an episode and it rings, we think it is our phone.
So yeah, that is overall the basis of the issue. You know, it's more of the same, but we're just slowly
It's
just
deeper.
yeah. You know, it's we were kind of talking about too. Just it's a lot of blood, a lot of punching, a lot of death. It's living up to the name and the idea of what you would expect out of this book. We do have 12 issues that we know of that will be for this series, at least for this initial run. But yeah, there is eventually going to get to a point where we're going to stop flashbacks and he's going to kind of fully remember, and we're probably going to deal with him, probably breaking away from the government and maybe killing all them or doing what he needs to do to feel free.
Yep.
But yep. So yeah, that is Brzrkr number 3, and then if we do get Katie later on the show in one of her rounds, may throw to her to see if she read this one as well and might get some further thoughts on it too.
Might have caught something we didn't.
Yeah, she often brings the philosophical approach to the podcast of using all the big words that when she's talking. I also have the dictionary window up on my laptop as I'm like, oh, okay, this makes sense now, because she is much smarter than us. So we'll see what she has to say. Okay, so that will do it for issue number 3 of Brzrkr. As a reminder, we do have some upcoming club picks. The next one will be July 24th will be the Batman and Scooby-Doo Mysteries, issue number 4. And then the 4th issue of Brzrkr we will do on August 7th. So those are 2 upcoming ones there. And once again, as a reminder for any future club picks, we basically, if we realize that we've got possibly up to 3 people talking about the same kind of weekly book, that we may usher it into a club discussion. So always remember to look at everybody's list and see what we're talking about, and chime in if you are also reading that, because we may throw that into a club discussion as well. So that'll be it for the club discussion portion. We will jump over to the weekly reviews. All right. Saved. And then I'm on Katie watch right now to see if she'll send a message, so I can then send David a message to let her in. Let me take a swig for the the working men and the working women out there. The murking men. The murky, the swamp things out there, the swamp things and the swamp women. Okay, we are recording audio. Test. All right. Welcome to the weekly review segment. We're going to go all the way around our Zoom windows here, talk about the books that we've been reading. I'm going to kick it off very timely. I'm pulling a book that came out maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I forget when here. 2019. End of 2019. Web of Black Widow. This was a 5-issue miniseries. Natasha Romanoff is the deadliest spy in the Marvel Universe and the beating heart of the Avengers. But when a mysterious figure starts exploiting her murky past, the Widow must go underground and off the grid. Who can she trust in this web of deceit? And more important, can her friends trust her anymore? This is by Jody Houser, Stephen Mooney, Triona Farrell, and VC's Corey Petit. It's timely because Black Widow just got her big screen debut in the MCU. So usually when that stuff happens, I like to pull out some things from the back catalog and revisit them. And this is the Web of Black Widow. I think this is fairly introductory for people if they only know her from the movies. You are dealing with some convoluted comic book continuity, which would be dealing with the fact that Black Widow died at the end of what the heck was it? No, it wasn't Civil War II. No, it was. I just had it was one of our club picks that I think we were talking about. If David was here right now, he'd probably have that answer. It was something that we talked about from Marvel, a big event that they had, where Black Widow died. And when you kill Black Widow or you kill any Marvel, DC character, whatever, you kind of expect, all right,
Endgame.
yeah. You expect, all right, they'll probably come back around again. And the way Natasha comes back is that she came back through like a cloned body experiment. Tony Stark kind of almost had like a similar type of thing too. But this series is dealing with the fact that she is kind of reinstating these memories, and she's kind of getting back into the swing of things. And she's not currently on the Avengers, but throughout this series, she is dealing with all of the people from her past. You see a lot of Tony Stark in the first issue. You're getting flashbacks to the Red Room. You get Bucky and Hawkeye in later issues. And, after having seen the Black Widow movie, and without saying anything, because it's very fresh and new, and I don't like to give spoilers on that, this would probably be a very good thing to read, because I think there'll be a lot of recognizable characters. Kind of going into her past, and I think if you just have your MCU knowledge, I think this book would be a very interesting read once you understand the fact that she is a character that is reinstated in a clone body. But speaking of those clones, is that the ultimate story here is that you have somebody that is impersonating Black Widow, another person that looks like Natasha, who is running around, and Empire. I think that was the name of the event. Empire with a Y. Nope, that was the one that was just recent. It'll come to me. 2 episodes from now, I'll just blurt it out. But anyways, she's dealing with the fact that somebody is basically posing as her. She's kind of a poser, if you will. Some people may get that joke. But here's an awesome splash page to kind of show off this great art, and it just shows this huge action scene here. And so, yeah, gorgeous art throughout. Really does a good job of telling some Black Widow stories and really getting a feel for what she's like in the comics. And now after I've seen the movie, I think this fits the vibe very well. And this came out a couple years prior to it. So yeah, if you're looking for some Black Widow, Web of Black Widow, 5-issue miniseries. And then currently right now, Kelly Thompson and her crew are doing just Black Widow. That's the main series. I think they're on issue 8 right now, give or take. And that has been my favorite take on Natasha since, because she's really doing a lot of new stuff and throwing it in there. So if you're looking to read some Black Widow comics, those are a couple of suggestions. Okay, we will move over to Kirby for a book that only Kirby would ever find and bring to us and let us know that this comic even exists, because that is one of his superhuman abilities, is to find the quirkiest, even in the title alone. And I can only imagine what's going to happen. What you got?
This is Radically Rearranged Ronin Ragdolls. It's number 1, but it's a one-shot. Reason I bought it is because it has this awesome Stan Sakai cover with Usagi Yojimbo in there with the Radically Rearranged Ragdolls. Basically what they are 3 cat characters. This one here, her, and this one over here. She's the badass of the 3. She does the most damage with the big sword. The other 2 hang out and catch whatever's left on the side. There's a lot of fun. It's basically done by Shane and Paul Bookmans, but it's also created by Kevin Eastman and David Alone. And it's I don't know, I can't remember. I read something about the synopsis before I got this. I don't know if this was like a concept. No, it couldn't have been a pre-Turtles concept. This would have to be after.
Yeah, and
What-
just real quick, based on that title there, that is the title treatment to Ninja Turtles, the way the letters are, the
Yeah.
font and everything. So, yep, that makes sense now.
But and then you got Turtle Lounge back there from
Ooh.
his website. But yeah, it's a really fun story about these three cat characters that are basically little kittens. And they do go into the origin story in here and stuff to give you that concept, but they basically get picked up by this laboratory guy, and he takes them to his lab, and when they're just little kittens, and all of a sudden something happens at the lab, it gets attacked. The cats get out. They're already been experimented on with some tests that he's been doing to them throughout their time with the scientist in the beginning. And then when the laboratory gets attacked, all of a sudden they end up going through a little thing here where they get chased and they're running through as cats, and they end up going through a gamma ray lab, and then they go through a cosmic ray lab, and then they go through a genetic mutagen lab, and each one they get zapped with something in the lab. And so that's how they get their little powers, because all of a sudden they come out and they start talking in English and stuff to each other. Hey, you're talking to me. So it's like, they basically teach them. Well, they did get some of their training in their past, and then they basically teach themselves how to do stuff. They come across this silent character that's being attacked, and it's this little guy here. He's just out and about, and some bullies are attacking him, but he doesn't talk at all. So they check into it, take him back to their main home, which is their lair. Is a place with a bunch of big cat scratching posts and cat beds and stuff like that. So it fits perfectly. It's a lot of fun watching all that stuff. And then this character that they come across, this kid that was getting beat up and bullied. Basically, they're being attacked by this head dog. He's basically got his little dog badasses that are all these little characters, but you don't really get the dog from them because they all got little weird masks on and stuff.
Okay.
So you don't really get the dog form from them. Then later on in here, the big baddie comes out, and he's the head dog guy that's causing all the trouble and trying to take these cat characters out. But dang it, I wish I would have wrote that down now. But this silent character ends up having a name that relates to something else that's with the whole turtle world and all that stuff. But I just can't come across it right now. But he does end up hanging out with the cat gals and helping them out, and they end up taking down this dog character. Most of the bullies and stuff, but some of them get away and hanging for something to come out in the future. And this was put out in 2019, but it does say at the end that it's the beginning. Ooh. So I was really hoping that this does go further on, but I haven't heard nothing new since, and it's been 2 years, so hopefully we'll see something. But if you like the Ninja Turtles at all, anything like that, you want a different storyline going on it, it's like they were taken in by this sushi restaurant lady. Her and her husband take them in, and when she takes them in and stuff, well, just before they take them in, her husband gets killed by some of these dog characters and stuff, and that's why they are hunting this guy, this head dog. I can't think of his name either, but yeah, they hunt down the head character because he killed off their future little stepdad. But they end up hanging out at the sushi shop with the girl, and it's a lot of fun. It's just like the Turtles, but just with cats.
Nice. I did have a question based off of something you said at the beginning, but I figured I'd let you stay on track because being an avid listener of Under the Cowl of MS, I did learn that, throwing you off, your train of thought might, I wanted to kind of keep you going. So you mentioned that talking about them being at the lab, and I was just going to ask, is it at the lab late at night?
Yes, they went to the lab late at night when he baked them in their little cat cage.
Okay, that wraps up my questions. I think I got it now. But yep, I knew if I tried to throw that in, yep.
Was it a match?
So yeah, all right, good. That will, and yeah, it's kind of cool to see that Kevin Eastman's involvement in that, because it definitely just looks like, okay, there's going to be some, the radioactive hamster thing, whatever the one knockoff spoof. But while it does have that, it seems to be part of the same world in a way too.
Yeah, the Kevin Eastman was like a bonus, because when I first seen it, the first thing that grabbed my eye was you saw Gigi Jimbo on the cover. I'm like, oh, cool. And of course, he's not in here at all. But
Oh, he's not?
no, it's just done for the Sakai just did the cover art.
Oh, okay.
That's all he had.
Yeah, I guess you didn't say.
Book.
I figure you're just keeping his involvement a non-spoiler.
No, just Dan Sakai cover. So.
All right. We will just kind of rearrange the list here as we wait for Katie eventually. Jump over to Jim. What you got here?
I have a Catwoman Soulstealer, the graphic novel. This is a graphic adaptation of a novel that was written by Sarah J. Maas and is adapted by Louise Simonson and illustrations by Samantha Dodge. This is an interesting story about Catwoman and Batwing. Batman appears in it as in a phone call. So that's all you get of Batman. But it's a different take on both of these characters. Not so much on Batwing. He is who we know he is. He's Luke Fox. He's a rich guy who does all the tech, and he's covering Gotham while Batman's out. Catwoman is a different take on this character, though. She is a young woman who grows up in a gang because that's the only place she can find protection and family, because her own family is not good. When she's 17, she gets in trouble and is rescued from the trouble that she was in by one of the Al Ghul sisters, who takes her away from Gotham and trains her in the League of the Shadows. Several years later, she comes back to Gotham under a pseudonym and begins her career as Catwoman, stealing all this stuff from rich people. She hooks up with Poison Ivy, and then through Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, and they set up doing these bank heists and such, and always playing this game of cat and mouse with Batwing, who's tracking her. And then she's got this side relationship with Luke Fox, who is her next door neighbor in their high-rise apartments. So it's a funny thing going back and forth between them. And it's, you get this interesting, like I said, just an interesting take on the characters, but what really got me most of all was the artwork and the colors. It's got a very muted color palette, mostly grayscale, but every once in a while you'll get like a purple tint. Like the Catwoman character is always in a purplish color. There's also a bluish tint whenever Batwing's in there, and then the bright yellow bat symbol always shows up.
That's cool.
When Harley Quinn shows up and does something, there's like a little splash of blue and red or pink, and then when Ivy shows up, a little green or a little flower, it's all full color. Here's an Ivy one right there. You get the little bit of a flower in there. So yeah, it was really interesting to see this artwork done. And like I said, a very different take on the characters. And it ends up that Selina does have a purpose for coming back to Gotham, other than just being Catwoman, just to be a burglar. And she had a purpose, and that is another part of the Catwoman or the Selena Kyle story that I've never heard before, that she has a younger sister named Maggie who needed her medical help because she was, I believe it was cystic fibrosis that she was suffering from. And
Yeah,
she
Maggie
needed to,
Maggie is currently in the Catwoman series, the main series.
okay,
But
I
yeah,
haven't been reading that. So,
that was the first time I've heard of her, so she might just be ultimately a rather new creation.
yeah, because I remember seeing this novel come out a couple years ago, but I wasn't interested in picking it up at the time because it seemed like a very young adult kind of thing. But then I saw this on the weekly releases from the store, and it's like, okay, I'll just grab that, and it was interesting. So yeah,
Cool.
so maybe it wouldn't be the first time a character has been picked up from a non-canon story and brought into the main
Yeah, yeah.
canon of DC Comics. For instance, Harley Quinn.
There we go. And if I remember correctly, I think the way Maggie was introduced was in the way that we had no idea that she existed, based on how the canonical main Catwoman series did.
Is she in the Catwoman series? Is she a younger sister who was raised by foster parents or something?
The
Who is also a sick girl?
Yeah, we see her just kind of mostly alone. I think she has like one caretaker, and then Selena comes in, and you see that there might have been a little rift there with the fact that Selena's never around and things like that, but you don't dive in too much from what I remember.
Okay, interesting.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, and it's this nice little size book, so it's not the full size comic,
Yeah,
but
and
it is actually says graphic for young adults. So
yeah, I buy a lot from that line. I've really been digging what they've been doing of just taking these characters and just putting new spins on them, and uh,
yeah,
yeah, I've been drawn to those kind of books. I got a couple. I think I have a Starfire one that's on pre-order. It's coming out within a month or two, and I know there's another one too that's kind of under that same banner. So
there's an Aqualad book out that's coming out soon that looks interesting too.
and I just got the
Jackson Hyde version of Aqualad.
I just got the Johnny Constantine one in the mail. It just showed up.
Yeah.
The one that we were saying that the Challengers Comics people in Chicago said it should be called Heck Blazer, but because it was Johnny Constantine and it's written by Ryan North, who did Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, so I'm hopefully going to be talking about that within the next couple of weeks. Good.
Cool.
Kirby, did you find your names you were looking for?
Yeah, Overdog is the bad guy, and then the kid's name, I thought it was something related to something, but his name's Kirby. I can't believe I couldn't remember that.
You couldn't remember that?
Yeah, I think I saw his reaction once he realized it.
Yeah.
Good. All right. We're going to jump over to the next one here. This is a very highly anticipated issue that I was looking for. Continuing on with the crossover book. Let me just get my correct window up here. Here we go. Crossover issue number 7. New story arc. Wait, no. Hold on. What is this? Why is Chip writing my book? Sorry, I know this is unprofessional to do in public, but no one at Image is answering my emails. Someone please call me. What is happening? That is a synopsis given through Previous World, which I'm guessing is assuming it's Donny Cates' voice. This issue of Crossover is created by Chip Zdarsky, Phil Hester, Andy Parks, D. Kniff, and John J. Hill. I think the back half of those creators are the normal creators on here. But as you'll see on the top here, they crossed out the writer and the artist so they can get Chip Zdarsky, Phil Hester, and Andy Parks taking over on this issue of Crossover. We talked about the first 6 issues of this book as a club discussion, dealing with the idea that all of the comic book world, superheroes and monsters and everything in it merged into our world, and we had a group of characters that were all kind of banding together in a world where people were trying to ban comic books and burn comic books, and there was very few shops around, and we kind of saw one of the shops get blown up right in the beginning of the series. But one of the teases we got into the introductory of this world was the fact that we had real life comic book creators in our world, that were on the news. They were in the news segments. I know Brian K. Vaughan was one of them. And this issue is focusing off of that idea with the fact that Chip Zdarsky, who is a writer, comic book artist, has gone missing in the world of crossover. This issue is written by Chip, which is a very interesting concept that Chip was given free reign to basically tell his story on what happened to Chip Zdarsky in this crossover comic book world. And we do find Chip, who is working a different job, and he's kind of going undercover. He has a different name, and he is basically laying low, but he still finds that a little bit of interest of kind of going back into a comic shop and browsing. He's holding a book that's called XY, as in WHY. But the guy who was working behind the counter recognizes who he really is by his Chip Zdarsky name. And as he's kind of talking about it, he's talking about how he's useless. He can write and draw comics well enough, I guess, but it turns out that that's it. And now something's hunting comic creators and hunting me, and there's nothing I can do about it. And that is the setup for this story. And there's, definitely some humor if you're a fan of Chip. You are definitely getting a horror type of vibe when it comes to the fact that, there's a stalker out there, there's somebody that's watching him. I won't reveal who that character is. We do see that character and who is watching or hunting and stalking Chip Zdarsky, and that leads for a very interesting turn for the comic book, which it's something I should have expected from Chip Zdarsky, who is one of the funniest men in comics, if not on Twitter alone. Everything he does, even in interviews and stuff, um, he's always there to service the joke first, and either talk himself up and mention how many Eisners that he's won, or he takes the other route where he talks himself down. And you see a lot of that talk down stuff kind of happen within this comic. And it had one of these last pages that dropped my jaw. I had to tweet it, and I tagged everybody. I tagged Donnie, and I think everybody saw it. And a tweet caught fire for a little bit on the day that I read it, of just saying, "Holy crap!" I'm continuing to be amazed by this book, and this one little single, off issue dealing with Chip Zdarsky. This last page reveal is bringing in some other comic book characters, much like what Crossover has been doing. It brought in two characters that I did not see coming, and I was just floored by it. So this issue I was very much looking forward to, and it lived up to every bit of anticipation. And with that last page reveal, I'm hoping we will see another round of this, maybe at the next time they do an arc break, because Donny Cates and Jeff Shaw will be returning in the next issue for the new arc. So I'm crossing the fingers that by issue 13 or something, we'll get another one-off by Chip to continue this story, unless he just hands over the reins back to Donny Cates to deal with it. But I loved it. I saw Kirby holding this book as well. You read it? Any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I loved it. It was a lot of fun. But since you aren't going into anything, I'm not gonna. But remind me later. I have a question for you. So
yeah, it's one of those.
This was really enjoyable seeing Chip in here, and just the way they did it was so much fun. So
yeah, and we have a warning on the audio podcast that the spoilers may happen, and everyone's welcome to. I'm always hesitant, and with something like this, if you are a big Chip fan, and if you haven't read this for some reason, or if you're just read the trade paperback that just came out of the first arc, it's one of those things that is just I was just self-applauding in my chair of just like,
if you're a Chip Zdarsky fan or a comic writer altogether, this is a great issue, just because things that you think of when you have to do them, and you get to fade them in here. So
It was so fun. And for those who are watching on video, which some of them are starting to come out again, talking with the producer of those videos, and he's planning to get some of the more recent ones up first and possibly treat the backlog as lost episodes, not episodes of the J.J. Abrams show Lost. Although you can fit that into the continuity if you wanted to. But if you are watching this on
The
video,
Dharma Initiative took over our show.
if you are watching this on video, I was just going to share my encounter with Chip Zdarsky. He was writing Star-Lord and Howard the Duck at the time, and I was talking to him about that. And I asked for a photo, and a lot of times at Artist Alley, you know, they're all behind there. It's long tables because everyone's like sharing, you know, all these connected tables. So I don't ever expect them to get out. I just, you know, do a nice little selfie over the table. They'll lean in or something. But he's like, oh no, let me get out there. So he like crawled out from under his table, and I had no idea what he was going to do. And then I saw what his bottom half looked like, because he was wearing these, basically these like yoga pants looking thing, multicolored. He's looking like he's stepping out of like a Jane Fonda workout video or something. But yep, he hoisted up a leg and he pressed up
Nice.
against me, and it was it's a photo I can never stop laughing at. And you know, even and he's got one hand on the hip there, and it's just he's, I don't know, I like everything he does, and he's proven himself as such a very serious writer when he's done stuff like Daredevil and Stillwater currently. So he's a multi-talented person, and to see him get to showcase that in this issue, I loved it. Jim, did you read this one, or did you?
I have it. I haven't gotten to it yet. I just got my delivery on Monday.
Okay, then good. Then that leaves it for you to find out this mysterious stalker. So, oh yeah, that issue's good. All right, that's gonna do it for that one there. And I jump back to the schedule, and we're actually going to be jumping back to Jim here. So, what's your next one?
My next one is called Batman Reptilian. This is a DC Black Label title by Garth Ennis, with all the art done by Liam Sharp. So he does drawing, colors, everything. And well, Garth Ennis is just a great dark writer, and he does a great dark, brutal take on Batman here. There's a story going on where there's something going on amongst the criminals of Gotham, and they are apparently killing themselves, maybe, or having things going on between them. And some of them have just been brutally killed in a bloodbath, and Batman's looking to find out what's going on. And just like I said, it opens up with a scene outside of the main story where Batman approaches this criminal outside of the courthouse who just got, released on a technicality. And he just gets in his face and starts provoking him and calling him a coward, and says, how do you live with yourself? And, that's what you're like with your wife. And, when you're, and it's like, I guess the guy they tried him for like a rape conviction and got released. So Batman's just provoking him. And when the guy finally takes a swing, Batman just takes him out, walks away, and just says self-defense. So, and then it goes into the main story where Batman's going after this, and the artwork is just, great art. Oh, let's see. Here we go. Here's the scene where the criminal goes for Batman, and Batman, just.
Yeah, Liam Sharp. He did the. Was it the Batman, Wonder Woman? What was that?
It was Brave and the Bold, where it was a story where they together went and did the into like the ancient Celtic gods, and they help them out.
Yeah, that was a
We
gorgeous.
kind of did that as a club pick, yeah. Liam did the story and the art there, so
Right.
yeah. But now he's just doing the art, so. But yeah, just great art. The main story is, like I said, where there's the criminals are dying, and you can see this brutal Batman because he goes and he finds one of the henchmen of, I think it was the Scarecrow's old henchman, and he just takes him up on a roof, and he just like, what are you worried about? Batman doesn't kill. But while he's doing this, it's just, you can just see how intimidating he is, and it's like, he gets this guy to go and sign up with one of the remaining criminals so he can find out what's going on with the remaining criminals. So he's got somebody on the inside, and it just terrorizes this guy. And this is not a weak guy. This is one of the, the hired killers, the thugs will kill somebody at the drop of a hat, but not for no reason. He's, as long as there's a reason or money, he'll kill somebody, but he doesn't kill people just for no reason. And he's just like scared, totally pantsless by Batman up there, So it's just this wonderful horror brutal take on Batman, how he just can totally inspire fear. And he talks about this bloodbath scene. So this page was done very well. It breaks it up into panels, and then you can see the bloodiness of the scene, and it talks about how Penguin and Riddler were both killed in that scene. And then you think it might be, because of the description and the title Reptilian, you have the feeling that it might be Killer Croc.
Yeah.
But he's eliminated as a suspect already by the end of the book. So there is somebody completely new, and the fear that he's inspiring within the criminals, is something. You think back now, it takes you into the psychology, and if you're into it, the reptilian part of your brain, how it's the primal response that people have. So that's what they're driving at with this Reptilian, I think. And whoever this new criminal is, we're going to find out.
I just saw a little clay face in there, and what Kirby is showing. Is he part of the story? Or
you got it too. Okay, cool. Yeah, this Joker is wild.
Joker's Wild? Is that still on True TV?
Here we go. Here, Come on, Joker.
There he is.
And then,
All right.
Yeah, that is Batman Reptilian.
Sounds good. Okay. In the middle of that review, we got the debut, or the re-debut, as we've been off for a couple weeks, but the return. Katie is here as well. Welcome to the club.
Hello.
First things first, did you read Brzrkr number 3?
No, I did not.
Okay, because I was just going to chime in with thoughts if you had any, but we can jump into your first pick here, which Dr. Aphra. You want to tell us a little something about Dr. Aphra?
Sure. I read Dr. Aphra, Volume 1. This is from the 2020 run. It's a Star Wars title. Dr. Aphra is a archaeologist, and sometimes within and without the law with her archaeology. And in this one, she is tracking down some magical rings. And I went, oh, magical rings. All right, I'm in. And they go to this lost city of Vale, or Vale. It's Vaale. And they're going through the ruins, and there's all kinds of like spooky architecture and sculptures, and it's really upsetting them. And they find the rings, right? And one of the ring makes you have like everlasting life, and the other ring makes you have endless wealth and money and valuables. And that causes some conflict within the group, because of course everyone wants those things. And then an outside agent comes in from the Taggy Corporation, who is kind of analogous to Tannelir Tavan, the collector. He wants the rings as well. And eventually he kind of overpowers Dr. Aphra and their gang, and they go back to his kind of penthouse on Canto Bight. And then there's some good Star Wars shoot 'em up action going on to find out what happens. And then at the end, we find out that these rings do actually work. They are magic. They do bring you everlasting life and everlasting valuables. I actually had a lot of fun with this volume. It was enjoyable. It was a really good pace. I felt like the story was fun. I got it for $5 on Kindle, and it was definitely worth my money. I liked it. I would read volume 2 when it's available. We have a new creative team on it. The writer right now is Alyssa Wong. So this is a good time to see what Dr. Aphra is up to, because we have a whole new team telling a whole new story. Anyway, I liked it. That is Dr. Aphra, Volume 1.
Cool. All right, gonna jump into the next one, which I know Kirby got as well. So once he returns, we can probably get a little bit from him as well. This is something I kind of dip in and out of based on the previews. I don't follow these books normally, but this is Oz Annual Patchwork Girl. Dorothy was once a young farm girl from Kansas, but it has been many years since she has been that person, and even longer since she has returned to Earth. Now, residing as the Queen of Oz, ruler of Emerald City, she and her people have gone through their hardships, and she has been there to protect them. But when a magical tornado rips through a prison, bringing one of the most evil of creatures to ever walk among in Oz to a small town in our world, Dorothy and her friends must set out to protect a place she's once called home. And what she will find will change the very fabric of her identity. Now, there are a lot of people that contributed to this book, so I'm hoping I will correctly say all of their names. This Oz Annual is created by Joe Bruscia, Ralph Tedesco, Dave Franchini, Jenny Lynn Wright, Alessio Mariani, Iman Casalos, Dario Tallarico, Jorge Cortez, Michael Bartolo, Max Flan Arujo, Taylor Esposito, Elizabeth Sarland, and since I've been listing everybody, I'll go right down to the editors and producing editors and all that stuff. We have Sina Ayal and Christopher Coate. There's a lot of people working here because you do have a lot of different art styles as you jump in between the story and stuff like that. I really dug this. I don't normally read these books. I just kind of jump in and out when I see something that's interesting. And I saw the cover and this idea of this patchwork girl. And on the cover, she's looking pretty creepy. There's a variant cover that looks pretty awesome too. That's out there. But this is pretty easy to jump into, I think. I do love The Wizard of Oz, and while I've read all of the Marvel adaptations of the original novels that kept it, more in the traditional realm, a lot of this stuff can be pretty fun too when they kind of, tell some different stories. The way we see different versions of like Toto in here and stuff like that. But we're dealing with an idea that this patchwork girl is this character who is stuck in this prison. She's a very powerful person, and they have this extra security when it comes to even, dropping her meals in there. And she's very frightening to all the other inmates that are there. And we do get part of her backstory and how she was this character long ago, and it is that traditional story of a witch that is being hunted and by the town. Everyone suspects that she's a witch, and you see all that kind of traditional stuff, but you see what happens with this character and how she gains some powers, and she eventually gets into the land of Oz. And she had this stint where she eventually led her to prison, but this story is dealing with the fact that she is now magically out of prison and she has come to Earth. And when Dorothy and her crew are alerted to that, they must go and try to stop her. As we see, the Patchwork Girl is going through this town, and I'm assuming they're in Kansas. Is that correct? Did I read that right?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's where the Patchwork Girl is, which brings Dorothy back to Kansas for the first time in a long time. And it's pretty creepy what this Patchwork Girl will do to the citizens here. She basically overrides their bodies and basically turns them into these kind of ragdoll type characters. Here's an awesome splash page that just kind of shows, as I get the glare corrected here, kind of shows her dancing in the streets, and all the people around her are all kind of zombified ragdoll characters, and Dorothy and the Scarecrow's there, and Toto, who is this wolf type of character in here. There's a lot of fun. The lines there and stuff. I like all these interpretations of these Oz characters, and man, I would definitely read more of this if this was a series. I don't know if this character had actually showed up in a previous issue or if her origin is just done through this annual. But yeah, I dug the heck out of this. This is from Zenoscope, and this is a supersized issue. You read these 64 pages of content as well, Kirby. What'd you think of Oz Annual Patchwork Girl?
I loved it. I only check out the Weird Oz runs, and I've been very happy with the past few that I have read. And this character is just, it reminds me of a Oogie Boogie character because of her little buddy, the little bug friend of hers, kind of like can rebuild her, can fix her, can help change other characters and help her sew up other characters and stuff like that. And it's just kind of gives me that Oogie Boogie feel from Nightmare Before Christmas. But yeah, she's a really fun character, and they could have a lot of fun with this one going on.
I just realized she's basically Sally and Oogie Boogie if they had a baby.
Yeah. Yep, pretty much. Yep.
These are real characters from the Oz books, but they're just the Zenoscope take on it. So they're not created just for Zenoscope.
So like
the only reason I bought it was because I love this version of the cover. So I'm like, well, I'm going to get it for that. And I'm probably not going to like it because it's Oz. And yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, that was the cool cover. I had seen that after the fact. I had ordered this one, and then I was looking for the synopsis, and I saw that one. I'm like, oh, that one's sweet. Yeah, this is a really good story, and it was very, like you said, we jump in and out of these books, and it's just like you don't need any other background information. But yeah, I would definitely read more if I see the Patchwork Girl advertised in any other of the Oz books coming up, and because it does have one of those the end question mark type of last pages, so I'm got to keep my eyes peeled on those previews to see if we get more Patchwork Girls. So.
It definitely leaves you with lots of room in the end.
Cool. All right, that is Oz Annual Patchwork Girl. All right, and we will jump over to Jim's last selection here. You're going to present us some DC horror, is that correct?
That is right. I have DC horror, The Conjuring, The Lover. I'm going to cover issues 1 and 2 because I've read them both so far. And this is a interesting book because there's actually 2 different stories in it, and they don't seem to be completely related yet because but they are both horror stories. The first one is a continuing story that's gone from issue 1 to issue 2, and it deals with a young girl who's having trouble in college. She wants to go home at the end of her first semester, but apparently her mom takes her back into going back because we come back and she's there, and things are not necessarily getting better. Jessica is, like I said, she's having trouble, and her roommates bringing guys back to the dorm, and she has to go to the library and study all night long, and she's not fitting in with other people. She finally is told she has to go to a party with the next person that asks her, and the young man does take her to a party, but she doesn't fit in there. But everywhere she goes, there's this thing going on, and like noises in the background, and scritch, 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 or voices that sound to be evil. And she does always like what's out of the corner of her eye, that kind of thing. And we don't actually ever see what's happening. We see some flashbacks to her best friend, who might be more than her best friend. Don't quite see it, but there's just a hint of why she's not quite fitting in with other people. That's in there. So, and this also takes place in 1981, so it's not present day. So, So that story seemed to be, and it's really, oh, here's the end of issue 1. She's in her bed.
Ooh. It's cool because I think I saw myself in there in the reflection. Ooh. Oh, now I just saw the letters pop up there. Cool, cool. Oh, did your volume go out? I can't hear Jim at the moment. Can anybody
I
else?
accidentally hit the mute button.
Okay, because you were showing that for a while, and I'm like, okay, I'll buy time because I don't know, he's showing this for a long time, but I'm guessing you were talking during then.
Yeah, my hands hovered over the touchpad and must have hit the mute button.
Okay,
In
we're
between, there's these classic looking comic book ads,
that's cool.
but they are for very twisted things.
Yes. Oh, that looks
Want a
cool.
secret
I like
decoder ring, psychic eyes. And it says psychic eyes, ghost vision glasses. And then we have a backstory called Tales from the Artifact Room, The Ferryman. And it's about this ancient, or not necessarily an ancient, an old coin that was stolen from a corpse because it was put in the corpse's mouth to pay the ferryman. The kid that stole it for all throughout his life is suffering disaster. And he tries to get the coin back. Only finally tracks it down to a place, and it has a taxi take him to this place, and only to find out it's a metal foundry where everything's being melted down. And then we find out that the cab driver is like this skeletal ferryman character who's coming to take him because he took the guy's coin. So he's going to escort them to the other side. So that's what I'm talking about. The creepiness of the story. Where's the ending on? You remember the old ads in the back of the comic book that for the little weaklings build up his muscles and do how to get revenge on the guy who kicked sand in his face.
Oh yeah.
This one is the insult. The man that made a man out of Malcolm. And it's the guy insulting the man on his date. Has this happened to you? We have a solution. And then it's got the pentacle, and it's got a ritual to Baphomet. Fill me with your great powers. Get possessed today and by the world famous demon Baphomet. You get powers. Who's the man now, Brad?
This is trippy. It's trippy because we're getting a modern take and throwback, and then Kirby on another window is showing classic old ones from an old Marvel 2.
Okay, cool. So yeah, that was. Oh, and I was going to tell you who the creative team was on this, because at first I thought, oh, is it him again? But it's not exactly. It's David L. Johnson. It was like when I saw that, it's like, oh, Johnson. Warren Johnson. That's where I was thinking. It's like, but it's not him. And it's like when I went back and looked at it the second time, that's when I caught it. He's a writer with Rex Ogle, and the art by Gary Brown for the main story. And the backstory for this one is written by Scott Snyder.
Okay.
Yeah, and art by Dennis Cohen.
Dennis Cohen.
And then Dennis Cohen. Okay. And those ads are called the Macabre Mail Orders, and they're written by David Johnson as well. So yeah, that was, like I said, we're up to 2 stories or 2 issues. The continuing story is the same, and there's another issue of Tales from the Artifacts in the second issue, but it's completely different story, different artifacts and everything. So interesting book. So DC horror, the Conjuring, The Lovers.
Cool. All right, as I just rearrange a couple things on my desk here. Oop, I knocked over my inkwell. That can only mean one thing. It's time for some more Inkblot reviews. Katie, what you got?
All right, I am number 9 and 10 by Emma Duber and Rusty Ladd. This was a club pick, so if you want to hear more about issues 1 through 6 and check some of our back issues on the podcast. All right, so in Inkblot number 9, the conflict between the two sisters has boiled over into war, and the nations are once again at war, and our little buddy Inkblot is in the heart of it. We see Inkblot help fight some giants. We see him kind of get between the two sisters, and it was just a very interesting situation to put our cat in. Cool high fantasy battles, continues to be just beautifully colored, just brightly colored, so much fun. I feel pretty confident giving this comic to most anyone. And then in issue number 10, we check back in with our little elf lady, issue 2. Whose mom had adopted the way of the cat, and we are checking in with her, and now the cat once again is back into her life and causing mayhem, and now she gets dumped into where she believes this cat is from, and they have to escape from some void monsters. That was really cool. Yeah, Inkblot just continues to be super fun, very lighthearted every time I read it. Puts me in a good mood, beautifully colored. I love it. I want to see more high fantasy in comics, and I love that this is existing and it's out there. It's Inkblot issues 9 and 10 from Image Comics. Check it out.
Cool. Yep, I've been reading them as well, continuing on, and always enjoying them. Good. And if I didn't miss anything, I think that is everybody's picks. Just had to jumble around the list here, but I think we all got them in. All right, we are going to have one more segment here on the show, and that is going to be our letters page. All right. Save. And record. And recording, test, it is up. All right. And I gotta find the question here. Okay. Say that again.
Are we doing the previews for Marvel and DC?
Next week we will do the Marvel and DC.
Okay.
Yeah, I know it's based on when it came out, but since we missed a show, figured we'll just buy some time there in case anyone didn't get them yet.
Very good.
Okay, here we go. Welcome to the letters page. In honor of Black Widow getting her own long overdue... I'm going to start all that over. Except for the video crew, they see the screw-ups. Here we go. Welcome to the letters page. This week's question. In honor of Black Widow getting her own long overdue movie, what other character in the MCU that we've seen already would you like to see a movie for? So in any of the movies that have happened so far, if there was one of those characters that just not has gotten the big screen treatment or is not in development for a Disney Plus series, what character do you think you want to see more of? Natasha was the character that showed up in Iron Man 2, and we later see her in more Captain America and the Avengers movies. But out of that original Avengers crew, her and Hawkeye were the ones kind of left behind when it comes to fleshing out their story. We get Hawkeye is having his own Disney Plus series later this year, and Black Widow just got her movie. So if there's somebody out there you want to see more of, I will kick it off here. Thinking about all these characters that definitely couldn't run their own show or movie. but something that I think would really give a good emotional background to, that would really contrast the way we've seen this character in the movies, would be Drax the Destroyer. Drax, played by Dave Bautista, who we'd see in the movies is mostly presented as comic relief. They do tie into his backstory, especially in that first Guardians movie, talking about the tragedy of his wife and his daughter. But the majority of his character in the MCU is a lot of comic relief, which is great, and I love it. But I think that's definitely one of those characters that you could really do justice to if you gave them their own movie or their own series, showing him as Arthur Douglas, the saxophone playing man. You can even throw that whole gimmick in there if you want to. But Arthur Douglas does have this tragic backstory that you've seen in the comics, where involving with a car accident with his wife and his daughter and himself. And a lot of comic bookness happens in the story, where basically, these characters die, but then Arthur Douglas gets reborn as Drax the Destroyer. I'm trying to think if Thanos caused that. I think he showed up on Earth, and I think something happened that caused their car accident because of him arriving or something. There's a lot of crazy stuff that happens, which basically it ends up getting Drax turned into the Destroyer, in which he is on a mission to kill Thanos. But then some crazy stuff happens with his daughter, who was presumed dead as well, and she eventually becomes the character Moondragon. I don't think anything happens to the wife, which would be obviously whatever they want to come up with in the MCU. But basically saying that there's a lot of tragedy within his story that leads him to being Drax the Destroyer. I think that would be a real cool outlet to give Dave Bautista some big acting moments there. I know recently he's talked about how he's pretty much done playing Drax after this next volume 3. I'm not sure if he's going to be part of the holiday special or if any of that is part of his contract, but he's getting to that point, talking about kind of like Hugh Jackman with the workout process of just kind of always getting back into that character and getting into shape and just whatever. And he's getting to a certain age where he just doesn't want to deal with that stuff anymore. But if Kevin Feige jumped there and just said, hey, you can have your own Disney Plus show or movie, all it takes is another contract of money to change someone's mind. But I think Drax could be well serviced to see his backstory. We will jump over to Kirby next. What's your choice?
Well, you took mine. Howard Duck's an obvious one, but we're just waiting, hanging in the feathers for that one. I had to go through the list because when you said it, my instant picks were I want to see Squirrel Girl, or I'd like to see Gwenpool.
Gwenpool.
Something with them, but they're not MCU related, so I had to go through and look at what I had to play with. Yep. And Dum Dum Dugan name came up on the list, and I'd really like to see a deeper dive on Dum Dum, as long as they go with the funny Dum Dum Dugan. I don't want the more serious one I've read a couple times that kind of is just way too boring, way too military-ish. But I'd love to see a fun comedic version with Dum Dum.
That just screams a mini series on Disney Plus for the Howling Commandos right there, with him being.
Yeah, I'd love to see him team up with them and do something.
That'd be a great way to get Haley Atwell back as Agent Carter, because she is always excited to come back. So I would definitely vote for that series as well. And I had that same thinking where I'm just like, well, Howard the Duck is the obvious, and you might say that one. So maybe if I pick Drax, and then ended up, But yes,
minds think alike.
Good selection there. To keep in the order of our reviews for this particular episode, we'll jump to Jim next. Jim, is there a character you would like to see more of in the MCU? Batman, yeah. Has he showed up in the Michael Keaton? He played Vulture in Spider-Man Homecoming. So you want to see Toombs, I forget his first name right now, but the the Toombs character. You want to see his arc turn into Batman. Okay.
Sure, yeah. No, I was thinking, who would I want from the MCU that hasn't had their own movie? And I can't think of the name off of her top of head, but the assistant to Doctor Strange.
For Wong. Oh, are you saying Wong?
Wong, yes, yeah. He was an interesting character that I'd like to see more. I don't know that he necessarily could support a movie on his own,
Yeah.
but he could go into that whole, a movie about that whole spiritual, psychic back realm, the magic, world behind Doctor Strange. That could be, and it would be an interesting movie.
And what's cool about that character, the actor is Benedict Wong. So Benedict Wong plays Wong in a movie with Benedict Cumberbatch, who plays Doctor Strange. And so Benedict Wong, there's a lot of Benedicts, a lot of Wongs.
Very Inception.
There's a lot of things wrong with that.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of things right about that. Edgar Wright, who was going to direct Ant-Man. There we go. Anyways, we will be seeing Wong again prior to the Doctor Strange sequel that's coming in March. So I'll just leave that out there.
Is this related to something we talked about earlier?
Maybe.
Okay. Well, then maybe I'll get my wish, huh?
Yeah. And the whole thing is going to be about him, I bet. So anyway. But yeah, that is a good choice. And I'll watch anything that the MCU puts out, but I like these choices. All right, let's jump over to Katie. What character would you like to see get a movie?
I'd like to see Luis from Ant-Man get a movie. I love him. He steals the show for me in Ant-Man and the Wasp. So funny. Obviously, he has a really great friendship with Scott Lang. Pretty important to that. And I'd like to see more about him. That would be cool. I'd watch that movie.
Yeah, if we get a lot more of his recaps and narrations and things like that, I'm all for it. So
yeah,
a heist movie with that whole gang would be fun.
That would be good.
And did you know that the guy who talks about the Baba Yaga in the second Ant-Man movie, he's Polka Dot Man in the Suicide Squad?
Oh, I did not know that.
Actor David Dastmalchian, who is also he's in the Dark Knight. I think he was in the Flash TV show. He's crosses back and forth between all these worlds, and he's played a lot of Marvel and DC characters. But I just had to throw that out there because he would be probably in Louise's story too. And yeah, cool. All right, I will buy my ticket for all of those that we mentioned. All right. I'm also going to buy a ticket for next week's Comic Club podcast because we are going to be doing the previews catalogs for Marvel and DC, the July catalogs for products that are coming out in September and beyond. We will return with weekly reviews. As a reminder for our upcoming club discussions, the next issue of Batman and the Scooby-Doo Mysteries #4. We will discuss that on July 24th. That'll give 2 Saturdays after the release for everybody to get their issues and check out that. And then we will revisit Brzrkr with issue #4 on August 7th. So that is going to be the lineup. You can subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast. Crimson Cowl Comic Club. If we're not on one of your podcast feeds or services, you can let us know. You can go to the Crimson Cowl Comics and Collectibles on Facebook, or go to the Crimson Cowl Comic Club on YouTube and drop us some messages or comments through there and to let us know. And maybe you have a question for the letters page, a future letters page. You can contact us there. You can always rate and review us and subscribe and all that fun stuff. Got a couple spin-off podcasts. We have Under the Cowl. You can check out back episodes of that. And then Kirby has his Under the Cowl of MS. There's a lot of stuff being talked about. We've got some, much like Oz, the annual Patchwork Girl with the extra pages of content. He has extra-sized episodes, bringing you everything about talking about MS and health tips. And we got hockey talk. We've got comics. We've got Sunday comics. There's a lot of stuff. There's a video game section he recently introduced. There's a lot of content there to check out on Under the Cowl of MS. So check out all those there. And yes, mini arcade. All right. I think that is everything we need to talk about. But we will see you next week on issue number 189. We could probably just stop numbering now that Kirby surpassed us and we're just left in the dust. And but I guess
How
we'll
did that
keep
happen?
for a little longer. We are coming up on episode 200 soon here. But yep, that'll do it. That bought me enough time to get to my pre-written end thing. This whole time, my ledger has been dripping red.
I've been a sexy Ronin Ragdoll.
Anybody, I guess, because we have a different order.
I've been eavesdropping.
And I'm Sue Storm.
And I'm Ray Skywalker.
To be continued.